Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Squat Cobbler. I am Dr. Mike, Edificial Pagan on everything. And of course, with me as always,
Hi, everybody. This is Kelly at KELLYTHUL on Twitter and Instagram. And we're back talking about Alice Cooper, which is awesome.
we are. It's a little bit of a change of pace because we've definitely been in retro gaming mode for a while, but you're going to get a lot more of that. You're also going to consistently get some Alice discussion. So, how have you not liked and subscribed yet? Just hearing that should tip you over the edge if you were on the edge to begin with.
That's right. It was already a banana split, and it's like we added another banana with Alice. And so it's all good stuff.
Kelly is going to give you the banana.
Yeah, there we go. I regret, although, yeah, I just, last show, I said a couple things that as soon as I said, I'm like, oh no, I wonder if Mike's going to run with this in a bad way. And he didn't. I was super excited. So it was great. But that
Personal
did,
growth.
yeah, there you go. But you backslid. So there we go.
Well, I got one in. I don't know. Maybe you didn't catch it now. I did, the last one we recorded. I did get one in the introduction. So
Yeah, I was aware of that one.
okay, I thought maybe I slid by on that one.
No, nope, nope. It's what we've all come to expect. All of our subscribers to Squad Cobbler. But yeah, it Alice continues to give us little bits of hints of what's going to be on the new album.
Leaving some breadcrumbs,
Oh, see what you did there.
leading us there, almost like a path of debris. Huh?
There you go, boy. You're hitting on all cylinders.
Killing it.
It-
I'm gonna
but
stop now because
yeah,
that's all I have. So
yeah. Because what we saw, so we're talking about, so Detroit Stories is Alice's new album, and here's where again captioning will help us out. We correct this. I think it's May of 21. Does that sound right? Is that when?
sure,
Sure. There'll be correction in the video if that's not the exact date.
I say this is the date down here,
Yeah, that's the date. Like we said. So,
just like we knew.
yep. But he has been rolling out. So Mike mentioned Breadcrumbs. Breadcrumbs came out earlier, and it was, I don't know if you call it a preview or a dry run or whatever, but it's the Detroit sound. It was an EP, some good stuff on it, and the tracks, most of all but like one of the tracks on Breadcrumbs is going to be on Detroit Stories, plus a whole bunch of new material. And over time now we've been able to hear three of the new tracks: "Rock and Roll," um, "What Our Love Does," or something like that. A very quirky one there. Again, look down below and you'll have the song title correctly identified. And now "Social Debris," which, as going through the track listing, that was one I was like, hmm.
And another one, sir, that you happen to be in the music video for.
Oh yes, that's true. So yeah, so that's four. That's four songs that have we've gotten.
Four plus the breadcrumbs track. So we've now with social debris, we've heard most of the album at
Yep,
this point.
we're getting darn close.
Yeah.
And uh, so that's one of the things I want to talk to you about. I thought maybe we'd talk first about the song "Social Debris," and then, because to your point, we've now probably heard 70% of the album, pretty darn close to that. So probably can start to get a bit of a formulation of where this one's going to nestle in. Mike, for those of you who have been with us for a while, you know Mike and I love Alice, and we have done reviews of all of his albums. And in the process of doing that, we also each have our own ranking list of the greatest Alice Cooper's best work, and on down, kind of which our most favorites are. And so this one, as it comes out, will get placed in its appropriate location. And so I've started to formulate at least some ideas on about where in the list I'm looking. I don't know for sure yet. I know it's not going to be at this point, unless the next like two or three tracks really surprise me. It will not replace my number one. It will also not replace the bottom one. But we'll talk about where it is in the middle. But I thought maybe we talk about Social Debris first, and then we kind of talk about as this Detroit Stories takes a little more shape, how it's kind of feeling to you in terms of the overall catalog.
Sounds good.
So I would say, so first of all, your reaction to the song overall, Social Debris.
Probably my favorite so far off Detroit Stories.
Yep, I'd have to agree 100% on that. I liked Rock and Roll quite a bit, but this one's better, I think. And I think I mean, I'm sure these things are intentional too. Alice likes to kind of call back or call forward sometimes, depending on the album. There's kind of interconnectivity between stuff or past references to work and all that. And in this song, to me, there's a very clear wave to Alice's greatest album. I don't know if you picked that up at the very beginning or not, right when the music's starting or not.
No, I must have missed that.
Okay, go back and listen. I'm pretty confident that you get kind of when Elected starts up for Billion Dollar Babies. There's a big kind of guitar crescendo, and it kind of peels back a little bit, and you get this kind of short little bass line before Elected takes off into its kind of form, and that kind of doo 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 kind of bass little deal is right at the very beginning, and it sounds to me almost exactly like the Elected little bass line there. So it's just kind of a quick little wave to it before it goes into something that sounds decidedly different than Elected and a lot of other things. But it was a kind of a nice little thing that I warmed my heart to begin with to kind of hear that. But this also could have been titled The Video. There's a video to support this, or I forget what they call these things now when they're not videos. They're visualizers. There you go. There's a visualizer, so kind of a video, kind of not. As Mike and I have mentioned, Blue Oyster Cult is got some excellent green screen software, and they're using it to its fullest extent on all of the videos for their new release. We were getting just massive green screen deliveries of stuff. This one uses it as well. This song could have been subtitled "Alice Got a Drone" because I think there's a lot of really cool drone footage of what I'm going to assume is Detroit, and some maybe not great condition buildings, not in the greatest condition at all. But there's lots of cool pans and stuff going with that, and Alice showing up on the various sides of buildings and parking lots and all that kind of stuff. But to me, a much lighter hand on the green screen in terms of how it was done, and not as jarring as the Blue Oyster Cult stuff that we've seen. I don't know what your thoughts were.
So first off, I didn't realize that they had dubbed this as a visualizer rather than an official music video, which I guess does make sense. So as Kelly had alluded to, it's a lot of drone footage of what presumably is meant to be a stand-in for Detroit, with some rundown buildings and things like that. Clearly, like stock footage type drone shots. So maybe that's why they're going with visualizer as opposed to a full music video. It is very reminiscent, particularly of one of the Blue Oyster Cult videos, where they are green screened on the sides of buildings and things like that. Done much better.
Yeah.
No offense to Blue Oyster Cult, but just done much better. This is, and even watching it, I mean, that was one of the first things that popped in my head, like the Blue Oyster Cult video, just done right.
Yeah, and I don't know what it is that made this, because technique wise and kind of concept wise, they're not very far apart
No.
in terms of what's going on with it. It's like, hey, pan through a bunch of buildings and let's have the performer appear on some of the buildings in different interesting locations. So the concept is very similar, but the Blue Oyster Cult one just to my mind just screamed green screen, green screen, green screen everywhere. Where the Alice one, you still know that that's the technique and all that, but it's just less in your face about it. It just blends in. So I don't know if it's just how they melded the image of Alice and the background that made it better, but it was I just found it significantly better, and wasn't distracted by it like I was. And I'm a huge Blue Oyster Cult fan, love their stuff, and it was just the video. It's just kind of like these just aren't. They're just not doing as good a service to the song as they could, because the songs have been pretty good off the new album. So
Yeah, the songs have not been bad from the stuff that I've heard. I still feel, and I haven't really done research into this, and maybe if we review the album or something like that, I will. But my take on the Blue Oyster Cult thing was their record label was like, here's whatever, $10,000 to go make a music video. And they were like, we could take that $10,000, make a video for every song if we only spend $1,000 on each kind of thing. So, and I very much feel like that's what you got. Um, it reminds me, and this was a criticism that I had leveled against some Alice stuff, and I do just kind of in general, when bands introduce a new element to something, whether it's a visual element or a musical element, sometimes they can go really heavy handed with it and don't know how to properly blend that in. So, an example, because we're talking about Alice and Kelly had mentioned our lists that we have, an album that I love and I believe Kelly does as well, because our lists aren't that far off.
no,
But an album we both love, From the Inside, to me, what keeps that from being even higher, like in contender for one of the top spots, what keeps it from that is really heavy-handed synth work. And that's a big complaint of mine. I feel like a lot of artists, when they started introducing synthesizers into their music, didn't know how to properly blend that in. And it just became, I hate to use the example since he did die recently and people are going to get mad that I said this, Van Halen, when they put out something like Jump, that's not how you do it. That's the wrong way to do it. But I'm using them as an example because that's a song that I think very many people are familiar with.
yep.
But every band who got a synthesizer right around that time made their Jump. So
Yep.
rather than just blending it in. And that's the way I kind of felt with the Blue Oyster Cult thing. Like, obviously they aren't super used to green screen work, and it shows. They were just like, we can do anything, let's just throw this at this and do this, and that's kind of what you get with it. And again, it's one of those things, like, green screen's pretty easy, almost anybody can do it. It really comes down to getting in there and really kind of tweaking little things, though. So I recently made a video where there was a lot of green screen stuff, and I didn't do it, but the guy who edited had to go in and, like, there was like a wall of monitors that we green screen different parts of the video on, and like he had to go in and like adjust each one of those and spend a bunch of time to make it look all perfect, and like it's really on those monitors. It's that time and money that doesn't get spent sometimes on the green screen. And again, not me doing it, but that guy was doing it. And this is the difference, from Blue Oyster Cult to Alice Cooper. Essentially the same video, basically, but that little bit extra time, a little bit extra money made a big difference.
It certainly did. And moving off of Mike spitting on Eddie Van Halen's grave. So how do you like it, huh? How do you like it when somebody does one of those? But Social Debris, sound wise, it's my favorite track so far that I've heard. If I were to depict it, it's as if as it started to play, the first half of the song in particular, it was like if Constrictor grew up, this could be a song on Constrictor, because Constrictor's a fun album and it's really good and guitar heavy, but it's got a kind of some of that Constrictor like energy to it, but rubbed in a lot of Detroit grunge and just a little more even, I don't know, skillfully executed. But it had kind of that, one thing about Constrictor is there was you could tell there was energy behind a lot, and not the cocaine energy of Zipper Catch's Skin, but just energy, good energy. And so I could just see it, and the lyrics are, Constrictor's pretty lightweight on the lyrics as well. Teenage Frankenstein, Life and Death of the Party, that kind of stuff. Still good, really enjoyable, but kind of cotton candy-ish more. Where this has got a little more of that just kind of rough and tumble Detroit stuff for me. I don't know what your thoughts were.
Yeah, I definitely. So this is not that I've disliked anything that we've heard so far, but when I think Detroit rock, Alice Cooper is one of the bands that I think of, particularly the earlier Alice Cooper group stuff, not counting the first two records, but the Alice Cooper group era stuff. That's one of the things that really pops to mind for me. So this is exactly what I'm thinking. What I'm thinking, Alice Cooper is making a Detroit rock album. This is exactly what I'm thinking. So this, more so than in the other tracks, definitely just gave me what I wanted to hear and what I expected to hear. I was definitely thinking Alice Cooper group listening to it. And it's interesting because we had talked about this before. There didn't appear to be any Alice Cooper group reunion tracks on this, unlike the past few albums, which did reunite the band for a couple
Yep.
songs on each
Mm-hmm.
one. But Dennis Dunaway posted today saying he is on this song.
Oh, yeah. See, that's
So
we haven't got as good a clarity this time
right. So
through. I'm
it
sure.
seems a little bit unclear now. And I tried to fact check it before coming on here and saw conflicting things. Things just saying it's reminiscent of the Alice Cooper group, and then other posts probably inspired by Dennis Dunaway's post saying it is a reunion of the Alice Cooper group. But that wasn't in any of the promotional material so far.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly won't be a surprise if they're appearing on some tracks because that has been happening more. Uh, but that makes good sense there, and that um, I'm with you that. So I'll revise my thing to say, if Constrictor and Love It to Death had a baby, it would be this song.
Cocaine baby.
Coke. It but it is good. It's adventuresome a little bit in terms of kind of multiple tempo changes and some things going through in terms of the delivery that I think work about 95% of the time. There was just every once in a while I was like just a slight hair, but just a minor quibble, and I think just a really really strong song.
Yeah, I think it's a really good song. I mean, I was already thinking Alice Cooper group, which actually it's funny because when I was thinking that, I was like, man, I wish they'd reunited to do some tracks on here. Then Dennis Dunaway's post saying that he was involved in this. Now I don't know what that means though, because he didn't really get into detail. He didn't specifically say this is the Alice Cooper group. So maybe that's just what people are extrapolating from that. Maybe he wrote the song or wrote the music for it or helped produce it. Like we don't know what that is yet. So as far as I know, there's nothing 100% confirmed with that, but he was involved in some way, and that makes complete sense to me when you listen to it.
And it makes even more sense going back to the first thing I said, which is if at the very beginning of this song you get a callback to a little baseline intro of
Yeah.
Elected, that'd have been Mr. Dunaway at that point in time. And so he goes, "Yeah, I could do this again," and so I could see that. So, yep. So we'll have to learn a little bit more. It'd be awesome. I really enjoy particularly Dennis Dunaway because his contribution to ultimately the Alice Cooper group. He and Alice were they were all kind of friends in high school, but he was I think was a big influence early on as he and Alice started to talk about what the Alice Cooper group was going to be about, and the kind of influences and some of the art influences and those types of things. And he played a big role in kind of the stew that eventually made the Alice Cooper group. So seeing him be able to kind of reconnect in different ways is great. No criticism, Michael Bruce. I think Michael Bruce is awesome. He obviously wrote some amazing songs during the time frame, but I think Dennis Dunaway's kind of creative mind had a lot of influence with the group's material, and so it's neat to see him still involved.
Yeah, and that's why I was saying to you, I mean, until we have real confirmation, official, this is an Alice Cooper group song, maybe he just contributed writing to it or production, or maybe he played on it, whatever it might be. But it makes perfect sense listening to the song. And it's definitely my favorite so far of the album, which, as you mentioned, we have heard probably 75% of at this point.
Yep. So and as we clearly mentioned, this is the date that it's going to be released. So keep an
This
eye out
date.
for that. That's the date, and so be sure to keep an eye out for that. But another very pleasant surprise to kind of because we didn't really get any kind of heads up this was coming out. Just kind of showed up. Mike found it, and we certainly had to kind of jump onto a show about it.
Absolutely. So where are you thinking list so far?
So, so the vast majority, as you kind of go through the entire list, I mean, you got to get down. The number of albums that I either really don't enjoy is small.
Right.
Small but mighty. Some, at least there's like three of them that I'm really not a big fan of, and then it just becomes kind of degrees of these weren't maybe just as great at execution, but this one feels upper half. It feels kind of upper half to me. I think I'm trying to contrast it. You know, it's tough because Paranormal was a really strong outing,
Yeah.
and so I you know, still got to hear. There's still a little bit more to be heard, and kind of take it all in. But I think at right now, as of this point, I have a hard time seeing this one leapfrogging Paranormal, but it's at least in its neighborhood. It's around it, but I don't think I'd probably jump it above Paranormal. So that's kind of where my head's at. It's gonna be upper half, probably below wherever I have Paranormal, and I'll have to see what else is around that. But still very promising and excited to see. Where do you think you're going to go right now?
Probably about the same. So far it definitely doesn't beat Paranormal. And Paranormal, for anyone who hasn't listened to it, for being this late in an artist's career, for having the reunion elements with the Alice Cooper group, it's unexpectedly good. Even as a fan, like it's just not. It's way beyond the quality level I would have anticipated from it. Not to say that there weren't good records coming out, but it blew away some other more recent records, like Welcome to My Nightmare. In my opinion, was a significantly stronger record than that one was. So it was unexpectedly good, and especially because for me going into it, I did have a few things stacked against Paranormal. I wasn't thrilled that the non Alice Cooper group tracks did not feature the live band because we're just fans of Alice's live band. So I would have wanted to hear that. Again, though, the work on it's incredible, so I can't complain there. Also, it prominently features the drummer from U2. I'm not a U2 guy, and their most recent album at that time, I don't know if they've released anything since, but their most recent album at that time was a complete dumpster fire. So a band that I'm not a huge fan of with a just garbage album as being their most recent thing. I was not at all excited about that, and I think he did a great job. So, the Paranormal was great, so my expectations are high. There are a couple of things that were working against this one a little bit for me. The biggest for me is that it is just really an expansion of Breadcrumbs. Which when we reviewed Breadcrumbs, my complaint about that was I wish they had just thrown an extra couple songs on here and made it, a real proper fleshed out album rather than sort of a longer EP that it was being sold as. Um, so I do still kind of wish we got two separate albums, like maybe an extra couple songs on Breadcrumbs, and then this was its own project. I'll say though, I mean, I liked Breadcrumbs, so I've liked everything we've heard so far. This is the strongest track yet, and there's still a few more we haven't heard. And if they're in this direction, that's definitely going to push it towards the top half for me. Right now, I'm probably right in the middle with it.
Yeah, I think it's. And one of our folks that listens to the Alice reviews point out in shocker that you and I might have missed this because how laser like we're focused on knowing everything, but the he was suggesting to say, well, guys, don't you remember they kind of said Breadcrumbs was the preview of Detroit Stories, or that they may have copped early on to, hey, this is you're getting a sneak peek at something bigger that's coming in, but we're going to put out this as an EP. And I don't remember seeing that, but this individual kind of brought it up and said, well, I mean, if they said that, maybe our expectations would have been managed a little better. But
Maybe so I do remember reading that it was kind of indicative of what was going to be coming from the next album. I didn't take that to mean the next album was just an expansion of like here's six songs from the album. I didn't take it to mean that.
okay, yep,
For at
yep,
least what I had seen.
yep, yeah. It's Hard to tell, but this definitely gives us we're going to have an entire album to listen to, enjoy, maybe listen to again for parts of it, obviously, and then kind of figure out where we're going to slot it. But yeah, it's you made a great point that your later part of the career to kind of start to crack out something like a Paranormal was definitely kind of surprising and welcome and great and awesome. We know that Alice does good stuff, but it was really kind of cool. And so that's a hard thing to match. But if the next couple tracks kind of fall more in the camp of Social Debris, yeah, then he may have done it again. But it's regardless of that, a very solid effort.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
A non-dumpster fire of an album.
No. So. Yeah, I can't stress enough how terrible that U2 album is, but but yeah, no, this seems like a really solid album so far. The way it's being released makes sense to me. So for anyone who doesn't know, music releasing structure now is much more like content delivery, similar to you would do with YouTube or with podcasts and things like that. That's a lot harder for established artists to do who aren't used to that pumping out a song every couple months or every few weeks kind of thing. So putting out an EP, then releasing a series of singles, and ultimately collecting all of that onto an album, it makes sense, and it's structurally in line with how more and more artists are releasing music nowadays in this streaming environment. In order to have the algorithms work in your favor, even an artist as established as Alice Cooper, you need to have a steady flow of music coming out. So this is a way for an artist who isn't used to working that way to get that kind of stuff out. So all of that makes sense, as well as releasing multiple videos and visualizers and things like that to work the YouTube side of it. So it's a smart release strategy for it. I still want to hear the other tracks. It's definitely like middle of the list for me, but I mean, that's, a list, like Kelly said, that's a lot of albums and only a couple that I don't like.
Yeah, it just becomes minor degrees of difference, and maybe sometimes not so minor degrees, but there's just such a body of work and so many good things. To kind of be in the middle of the list is no criticism really at all, because there's just so much.
There's just so many great albums.
Yeah. Excellent.
But a few more songs like this might be the difference in this, going ahead of something else.
Yep, most definitely. Well, we would like to get on the Alice stuff when it comes out, because it's a favorite thing to talk about, and hope some folks are enjoying that. Love to hear your comments, your thoughts on Social Debris, any of the other things you want to straighten Mike and I about the true relationship of Breadcrumbs to Detroit Stories, so we fully understand it. We're willing to learn, and so all that. But
and again, like, even if what I saw was the thing, that was my interpretation of it, but I've been wrong in the past. Like the absolutely terrible Ozzy Black Sabbath album 13, when they reunited with him. I remember seeing interviews and press things with the band when we're talking about how they were pulling a lot of influence from their first couple of records they had done when Ozzy was their lead singer. I didn't know that meant they were just recycling entire songs. That wasn't my interpretation of that. So that, it's the way that I read Breadcrumbs press release and all that stuff.
Fair enough. Cool. All right. Well, I think that wraps it up for tonight, unless you've got anything to add, sir.
No, stay away from that U2 album, and don't kid yourselves. 13 is a bad album as well.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.